So, hello and welcome everyone. This is the this is the DUNGEONFOG Masterclass now, the workshop. And my name is Bob Ross. And with me I have a fellow artist. Hi, Caeora.
Hello everyone, my name is Caeora. Hello Till, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing really fine. So when you look behind me, I hope you can see it. I have these submissions that we've got. Now, for the stream, please excuse again, it's there's green in there, which kind of conflicts a little bit with our green screen setup here. We've got a lot of submissions, and I'm really happy for all of them. I took the time to clone them all into my account. I will review them in bits and pieces in details, and I will try to reach out to each and every one of you and give you a personal feedback. But for today, I thought it would be really cool if I could have you with me here, and we're picking one specific map that we both agreed on. We thought that would be a cool map to work upon, and we are going to refine that. So you are going to give me your feedback, and I am going to try to work it with our tools.
Yep, that's the plan.
That's the plan. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So Nikki submitted a map that is, I think, really cool in, pardon me, I need to go here, for several reasons. First of all, what she did was she created the mansion with a, where am I right now? Right, with a first floor and very interesting, a balcony that leads down into the second floor. Then we have the ground level. We've just been seeing that also with some lighting and this entrance, this foyer. And she has also created the cellar. So we have the basement where the alchemist is well doing his terrible stuff. And I think let's start with the basement right now. Wait, sorry. Before we do that, I forgot that. I have a sticky note here that says, answer the questions from yesterday. So sit tight for a second. I will now answer the questions that I got yesterday first, because I promised to do that. So one of the questions was how to make windows and open doors transparent, like if light could shine through them. Well, you can't do that yet in DUNGEONFOG. They are still part of the wall element. But we have an update planned for later this year that will make doors a lot more interactive with light sources. So for now, you can't really do anything in that regards, but it is coming. An interesting question, Mark, for you. You could answer that as well. On battle maps, or the question specifically was asked in DUNGEONFOG, is it possible to show a gabled ceiling inside a room? So technically, yes, I can show you how to do that. The question is, Caeora, would you show a gabled ceiling on a battle map?
Yeah, under certain circumstances. I don't think, yeah, I don't see why not.
Would you build that as a separate layer, like a separate level? Or would you just build that as a visual representative?
I've done it on, I've done layers before, and I've also shown it representationally, sort of half embedded into the actual layer or the floor of certain buildings. So yeah, you can do both, but I think it depends on what kind of architecture you're going for.
So what would be your, because it's a top-down perspective, what would be your approach for that? Would you make it slightly tilted, something like that?
Yeah, typically I like to try and make my maps look not as accurate as you. Yeah, I guess so.
And then, I mean, that was very quickly done, but then you would probably go with the transparency so that you can understand that it is above, like it's above.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what kind of gabled roof you're talking about, but I that's one of the ways I would do it. I'm not like, I can't really show you how I would do it because obviously Till has the screen.
Yeah, no, it's not,
but
because the thing is, it's not the gabled roof per se, which is just the full roof, but the question, I think, so as I took it, was just the ceiling, which means that you're showing the ceiling, but not the full roof.
Okay.
Okay. Another question that you can answer as well is, would you build a battle map for every encounter or just the really important ones?
Oh, just the really important ones. Yeah. Building an encounter for everything that you have in your D&D world, or for the adventure that you're running, is wholly unnecessary. Role-playing encounters do not necessarily require encounter maps, although sometimes they do. Sometimes they're really fun. Sometimes you might have puzzle encounters, or you might have trap encounters that require you to work out the space or the scale and stuff like that. So sometimes they are important, but for the most part, you can do those theater of the mind. It's also, if you're making a lot of maps for your RPG worlds, that can be sort of, you can get bogged down on making maps when you want to worry about creating characters or creating plot and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So, from my perspective, if I expect battle, if I expect combat, then yes, then I'm building an encounter map, because that is, at least for my players, something that they really enjoy, putting the miniatures and moving the figures around and combating. If I'm uncertain, just because I love map making, I often do battle maps that I never bring out. Or if I think the scene is really good for layouting and I would like to make it just to impress my players, then yes. But also, we are also doing a lot of theater of the mind scenes. So I would say my answer would be, if you're expecting combat, then probably. If you are wanting to show off a specific scene that might need a visual reference, then definitely.
Yeah.
Next question is, how do you decouple story arc from geography so that PCs are free to move and get a satisfying story? So let's keep that on a battle map, though, because I think the question was related to battle maps. So how do you create a battle map that doesn't railroad people from room to room, but give them enough space for exploration?
Sure. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, you've talked a little about the 5-room dungeon design, haven't you?
Yes.
And I think it's a little bit limited in its philosophy. I mean, 5-room dungeon design is very economical, but it's basically for somebody who wants to write a story with every single detail and give their players no options to do anything else. I think that approach is fine for some people, but it is very limiting, and it doesn't allow for creative freedom, especially from your players, which is a very important part of D&D, at least for me anyway. So I have a different philosophy on that. I think that you should have 7 rooms, or the 7-room dungeon design, and that's something that I've started writing about, and I've started sort of piecing together. And it's all about the idea that there is a little bit more twists and turns. There are a little bit more corridors. There's things that there might be empty rooms or blank spaces. There might be things that your players have to backtrack and come around and do other things, just so they have the freedom to explore. And I think that that's something that a lot of older D&D battle maps have in abundance, where they have a lot of sort of twisting corridors and twisting things, especially in dungeons. And you can apply that kind of thing to open air spaces like cities or environments like forests and things, like bigger biomes. As well. So you can open up the space and give your players a lot more of an avenue to make their own decisions to reach that final goal, or multiple goals, or whatever that is for your plot.
So as I showed yesterday in the presentation that I ran before, if you take the 5-room dungeon concept and interpret rooms as areas of interest, that doesn't have to be one room. That can be the servants' quarters in the mansion. So there are several rooms they can explore, but they have a purpose that you might place in the story arc. Now, if your players go from like enter the house from the servants' access, for example, they might not hit the role play encounter next, because they are now entering in the area that you've planned for Revelation, for example, which is absolutely fine, because you don't have to bring them to Revelation now just because they are now in the area that you designed for that. You can also let them explore and continue onward and bring the social encounter somewhere else. They might meet the kitchen maiden who says, "Wait, who are you? I don't know you." So I think there's a lot of ways to play with that if you have the basic structure, the basic concept of the map, and the areas where the concepts should take place, but you can detach them from the map if necessary. And I think that's, to my experience, a very vital thing that you need to do. You need to be able to improvise sometimes.
Yep.
Caeora, what do you think is a believable scale for the size of a few typical buildings: normal home, mansion, castle, and ruins, and ruin-type dungeons?
A believable scale?
Yeah.
In what?
What is your thinking process when you say I'm making a castle ruin? How do you scale that to make it believable?
Well, it depends upon what you're. Okay, are we talking about a medieval castle? Are we talking about a merfolk castle? Are we talking about a dwarven fortress? What are we talking about here? That is a very open-ended question, and the only thing I can say to that is looking at whatever you're filling it with and making everything consistent to whatever room you might believe it is. So let's say we're looking at a castle throne room. And so you know that in a throne room, you're going to get a throne, you're going to get some marble pillars, you're going to get some banners, you're going to get some, fancy little bits and pieces on the walls or whatever. You need to make sure that all of those assets look like they're existing in the same space. So they're the same sort of sizes in relation to one another from what we imagine in our minds. So you can't have the throne room taking up 3 by 3 squares if you know that the 5-foot scale applies on your map. So you know that a human is not going to sit on a massive giant chair. So that's how you would scale that map and those assets around that. And by doing that, you kind of work out the size of the room, because you work out that, oh, okay, so the throne is going to take that much space. We're going to have a hallway that's going to come up to the throne room. So we know we want this much space where they can approach. We want some pillars on the side. We don't want to leave too many blank spaces because that's boring. And then we kind of figure out, oh, okay, so that's how big it's going to be. So that's kind of how you can do it. You can also just look at throne rooms from concept art, and you can look at sort of inspiration in that way, and you can sort of work out to yourself, oh, okay, so it can kind of be that size.
So I've experienced that quite often, that I start a map, for example, a building, and I realize I had a very, very straight idea of how to do it. And then I realized that the base foundation that I drew is just too small. I can't fit all the rooms in there. So I reworked them. I added more rooms. And the lesson learned is I usually start with the climax room, where I say, this is where the battle takes place. This is the important one. This is the climax. And once I have those dimensions right, I can work from them. I can say, okay, if that is the throne room, then the ballroom must be at least half the size of that, or twice the size of that, depending on how I want to flavor that. So again, I think doing a lot of research before you start building your map is very helpful. Looking at artworks, looking at pictures, trying to build this image of whatever you're going to do in your mind first. And then again, pick one room that is important for you and start working away from that. And the rest will find together.
I will add one more thing to, as I just sort of thought about thinking about this. One approach, one very practical tip that you can take when you're making this kind of thing is, if you start with, look at the map behind us, or behind Till, behind us. You can see that there's a lot of blank spaces in there. And a practical thing when it comes to making battle maps is that if you start small, so if you start drawing out your room small to begin with, and you don't have enough space, you start to add things on. And you might think, oh, hold on, that's a bit annoying. I should have worked that out at the beginning or whatever. But take a step back and think from a historical standpoint, or from a sort of like a, like a nice theoretical standpoint. A lot of buildings, including almost every building in the real world, will be built and then added onto later. So a lot of castles, a lot of buildings, a lot of areas of the world have started out small in little villages and grown over time. So you can have a little think about that when you're building your map. If you start out with a small living room and you think it's too small, you can add a little annex onto the end afterwards because you realize you want a little, like a little a window there, or you can add something onto the back to create a little porch. So if you're going if you're going with an approach to your room design or that kind of thing, starting big is not necessarily the best thing to do. Starting small and then adding to it is a good approach.
You just touched that, and that was the last question from yesterday that I have on my list is, how do you fill empty or useless areas or rooms? Or do you keep options while making rooms that any of them can act as important areas? So first of all, if you think of where you are living at the moment, do you have any empty rooms? Like, is there anywhere, do you know anyone who has an empty room?
No.
That is just not filled? So empty rooms do not exist. And if we have an empty room, the first thing we do, if we do not yet know what to do with it, is we park all the useless stuff in there. So if you come across an empty room and you really don't know what to do with it yet, put some crates in there, because that is what the housekeeper or the owner or the goblins who infested that old cave would do. They would just park stuff in there. And once you build the dungeon, you might realize, oh, I'm missing a room. And then you have empty rooms where you could say, quite literally, we forgot about the toilet. Where do we put that? And the goblins would not be like, oh, we're building a toilet now, an outhouse in front. They would say, we have an empty room. Let's dig a hole in there and use that. So we're looking at this map here, and we have an empty room, and it's quite unbelievable because no one will have such an empty room. There will be something in there.
I mean, especially for a basement, you would expect there to be just things in the corner, rubbish piles or pools of damp water,
wine
or
flasks,
pillars,
or
whatever. Support structures and things like that. So this is a great. It's often easy when you're creating battle maps to be looking at that blank space and going, oh, I can't do anything. But you always should remember that there's great inspiration out there if you look up whatever it is that you're building, basements or living rooms or fantasy castles and that kind of stuff. There's great inspiration out there for you to just look through some pictures and go, oh, great. Yeah, I didn't add a painting, or I didn't add a little pool of water and stuff like that. So always remember you can go back a step and look at inspiration and look at artwork.
Also, another thing that you have to keep in mind, or should keep in mind, is that your players will never hate you for another room with crates in there, because they might be chasing through this dungeon. They might be desperately looking for a healing potion, and having a room with crates is always great for them because A, they might find something in there. B, if they are bored, you could trap them quickly. And C, it is something that they can interact with or ignore if they already have a good mission objective. So again, just don't create empty rooms, I think is the thing. Fill them with random stuff and work out later what you could do with them. Right, those were my questions. And if the chat will, or if the viewers will excuse, this week is really heating up and getting headaches, and I want to be at my full game here. So I will remove this. I will turn back into magic. Till?
Still needs to let his hair breathe, or his head breathe.
Before that one fuses today. So we have the basement of this map, and I think we can do a lot of things here to improve that. Although I think, quite literally, I think we could perfectly play on that. It is absolutely, it has everything we need. Now it's just the perfect opportunity to have the artist here who will assist me in making the most shiny thing out of this that we have.
Yeah, so what we're doing here today is we might use words like fixing, we might use words like making pretty, or we might sort of say when we're moving or changing and doing all these bits and pieces. But this is a very usable map for playing a game. What we're doing here is we're trying to give you more techniques for making your maps look prettier, and we're trying to teach you some of the aspects of the program that you might not know. So what we're doing here is we're not trying to say that this map can't be used in a game.
No, as Janet just said in the previous talk, we're not putting shade on anything.
Yep.
We're just trying to give feedback and help you improve on whatever you're doing.
Yep.
So without further ado, we know that we are now in the secret basement of the alchemist. So if we set the scene, the alchemist is someone who has obviously captured a vampire here, is draining him, and is refining the blood to keep himself alive and earn some money to make him rich. So the players, this is also kind of the final scene. This is where the chase took place and where the alchemist probably fled to turn around and face the PCs for the last time. So this is, I think, they have been in this upper area. They have experienced the ball. They have been seeing the shiny bits and pieces of that house. Now, this is where we need to, I think, shock the players. This is where we need to turn it around and say, oh, look, there's really bad stuff going on there. So how would you emphasize on this dark tone here?
Well, immediately, let's turn down the lights. We need to immediately turn down the global lighting. Yeah.
Yes. So activating, again, just so that people can follow what I'm doing, you have the lighting tab down here, and you have something that is the stage lighting, and you have something that is the room lighting. Now, if I would turn both to 0, it would get a very, very dark map, which again, I think is very cool, but players should still see the stuff that they're doing there. And although we might
just a little bit, we're going to be adding in a lot of lighting effects in a second, but the background stuff we're gonna take all the way down. So let's bring that back up just a touch.
Let's go to, I will go to 40% here. I think, do you want to, like, would you normally show Earth around here?
So what I would do, what I typically do with my maps is if I have a little bit around the edges and then it's almost black. So around the edges of the walls, you might see a little bit of Earth, but then around the edges of the actual canvas, you might only see black or complete darkness. The other thing we were going to do, don't forget, we were going to cut the canvas for this.
Right, so that we have a little bit more focus on the map here.
Yes, so if you zoomed out on this map, it's a huge canvas, and we're actually only going to be focusing on the so you can see here there's loads of space
again
here.
The reason why this was made, and I think the reason why Nikki did this, was because there should be a bridge encounter here. Now, for the sake of showcasing the tool and for the sake of us having enough space here and focusing, I can show you how you can do this. So if you have a lot of unused space that you want to get rid of, you can go to the sizing tool here, and there is a button that says reduce to minimum size. Now, what this does is checks everything on the map and reduces it to the point where the most outside element is found. So if I click that button, it will crop this thing down to this one, because that's where the last element was found.
Does that cut off the top part of the...
No, it recognizes all the other elements as well.
Good. Now, the other thing that I wanted to do, just for artistic purposes, is change the way that the grid looks. At the moment, the grid on this map looks very it's sort of popping out of the map. It looks very messy. There's a lot going on. The white dots for me aren't working. So I like a rectangle grid. Maybe black, about 10% maybe.
So this one, but that will be way too much. So you're going into black, and it is still very dominant. So you would go into the alpha slider and reduce it to 20%. No, even less, you would say.
No, even less, maybe 10.
Yeah, keep in mind that we have Discord, Twitch and YouTube viewers. So we will keep it up a little bit more so that people can see the grid. because of streaming.
Oh, all right. Okay. But normally
Okay,
I use it.
let's
At about
compromise on 15. Okay.
Yay. Yeah, so that looks much better from just those couple of things. The next thing I think we should do is change the lighting or change some of the textures. What do you think?
Are you satisfied with the outlines? Are you satisfied with the way that that this is like embedded in earth ground?
Not really. It's not terrible. What they've tried to do is you can see they've tried to if you zoom in a bit, you can see that
Yeah,
the
I'll go to 200% here. So there you go.
yeah, they've got the wall, and then they've taken away the black line, so you
I
can't
would turn
see
up the
the
light.
black line on
Yeah,
the outer edge of the wall. So it
yeah, you
kind of
see the,
looks like yeah.
So what we could do is, because I think the reasoning behind it was that you have earth ground, but you still have worked walls. So what you could do is you could select the room, and here we see the outer wall thickness is turned down to 0. That's why there is no outer wall right now. Which when I bring it up to 4, for example, it would look like this. Now, this definitely looks like it was sticking out of, like it was a raised wall. But what we can do is we can go into the advanced mode of the room selection tool. So we have those wall types where we have normal and below ground and cave. And I can take advanced and I just turn off the outer shadow. How do you like that?
Yeah, that looks pretty nice.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will grab that and apply it to the other rooms, because then we have a consistent. Now I think this one, yeah, I can do it as well. There you go, and there we are.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I can turn back down the light for you now.
Yes. The next thing I do is change some of the textures in the rooms, because at the moment, all of the rooms have the same texture down here, and I like to mix it up a little bit. So some of them should be wood. The texture that they've used for the tiles as well, we could find something that matches the assets a little bit more. So what about that corridor coming down from the stairs? Why don't we make that wooden?
I agree. I think that also would, like, I would expect that to be wooden. If I think of constructing that, I could imagine that this could be a wooden floor. Now it's currently scaled at 70%. How do you like that?
No, that needs to be 100%, I think.
Let's see.
Yep.
Okay.
We go.
There you go.
And
do we have more wooden floors? Like, do we say, okay, it's just this one is wooden, or should
I would say that little storeroom should probably be wood as well.
Yeah, I agree. And again at 100%. Okay.
Yep. Lovely.
Lovely. Okay, just briefly, let me just quickly type here something.
The other thing that I was thinking about this was that the walls themselves, as it's a basement, I think they should be a little bit thicker.
The walls?
Mm.
Yeah, sure.
Just a little bit, but
so let's put them up to 5. So that would make a total of 10 pixels. Oh, well, yeah, that's not really visible though.
Okay, maybe 6. Let's try 6. Yeah, that's a little better. Well, it's just that most of the time when you're building, when you have sort of, basement walls or underground walls, they're pretty thick because they have to hold up the earth. So we want them nice and thick.
Right. I would just quickly apply that to all the other rooms so that we are consistent. And there you go. So do you want to change the lighting? Do you want to first do all the textures, or should we work room by room? Should we just go from one room, finish that? I think that would be a nice approach. Let's go room by room.
The only other thing I'd say about the walls is I think the texture itself should be darker, because this is underground. We're going to have we want it to feel nice and dark.
Okay.
Give the lighting into we're going to put lighting into the rooms themselves. So we just turn down the walls
I will make it for this one, and you will tell me if that is enough.
A little bit more. A little bit more.
Little bit more, you say? Sorry. Okay, let's try minus 50. And that's outer wall, and so we need minus 50 for the inner wall. And I need to, because that is confusing right now, as you can see, they have different colors, which is because the stage is lit at 40%, whereas the rooms are lit at 50%, 68%. And I want to, let's unify that so they have the same color. Okay, you like that better?
Yep, that's great.
All right, then I will again pick it up, paint, paint, paint. I cannot paint that because otherwise I would override the floor. So I will have to manually adjust them, which means I said minus 50, right? Minus 50. And okay. So I think I've just addressed that. I saw a question, how do you use the floor brush to paint the walls and not the floors? Currently, you can't. It takes all room settings and applies them to the next room. But there is going to come an update where you have a check mark that says only floor, only wall, and so on and so forth. So there is space for improvement there, and we've already planned the tool to have that. We just need to implement it at some time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so but I can pick this one. Like I can say, okay, apply. There you go.
Wonderful. Yep. Lighting next, I think, for the little hallway there.
Yeah.
At the moment, those lights are.
Well, first of all, this is a very old. Oh, this is snap to grid. I need to turn that off. This is a very old. Come here. Where are you? This is a very old asset that we had. I think that is one of our first assets, and it's not the best torch that we have. So do you want to change that?
Yeah, or make it invisible. Basically, just keep it, but make it so that the light sources we have in there are basically
okay. So I just selected the asset and turned down the alpha slider so that this one is invisible. And do you usually do you place how do you call them, scones and torches? Do you place them in maps?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so we should use one of yours, right?
Yeah, well, I have a wall torch that you can put down if you want to use that.
I will. I want. By the way, learning from my lessons yesterday, where I was desperately scrolling through the asset list and I couldn't find the assets because I was like, I need that one. I need that one. I sat down today, and under the assets tab where you can organize, I've created a little collection for myself that is called Dark Lord. And that has now all the assets organized in little reminders for me, so I know where to find them, which means under dungeon, I have the wall scones. There you go. So we're going to place that here. And now we have that. And we still, I think what we should do though is, let's place it here. We should get rid of that lighting because we can use the scone itself as a lighting source. So I can take it and place it here. And now I can say in my lighting tab, which was still open here, I can say light source, enable. And now it is casting light. Now it's casting a lot of light and just white. So we need to adjust that. I would say it is definitely more in the orange space and rather.
Yeah, let's go for a sort of an orangey, reddy color. A little bit more orange than that, but yeah, that's looking great.
Yeah,
I like
and
the color of the red on the wood.
It's at full lightness, which means it uses all the light power it has. And it is casting the light for 7 squares, which I think is too much because that's not what this would do. I would say let's try it with 3. That would be just this far.
Yeah, lovely.
More, less?
No, that
Happy?
looks great. Yeah, just a
Okay.
little bit. So it's a very dimly lit little corridor with a little torch, sort of bubbling away. Or maybe the last embers. It's
Yeah.
not fully flaring,
Yeah.
and I think that the shadows in the corners there look lovely.
Right. That's exactly what I was leading up to next is I think you can, and I've seen that in the maps that you've created and submitted. You can easily go overboard with light, putting too much light sources, because you have the feeling that you need to put light in every corner, which is not
Mm.
right. You don't have to. I think the scariest part, even if we remember as being kids, the most scary parts where no light shines, which means I will never forget when I had to go from my room to my parents' bedroom because I had a nightmare. And this long corridor was not properly lit, and it was absolutely terrifying for me. So having dark areas is really cool.
Yep, and it can also help to fill in blank spaces because
Yep.
it basically creates its own sort of texture and its own way of looking at the map.
Okay. So what are we? Do you want to add anything? Like usually, when I think I'm done, because I don't think that we want to put any props in here, right?
No, it's a bit too tight.
Right. But what I would do is I would use brushes to like it's a very neat floor because we haven't damaged it yet. So I would try to do something. How are you doing that usually? You're doing that with just dark areas, dark brushes?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, or a textured brush, so it looks like there's a little bit
Yeah.
of mud
So
or something.
right. So a texture brush would be, I mean, again, it's you have your own brush set, you have your own texture sets, which we don't have now. We're using the DUNGEONFOG stuff. So we can look for wooden textures here that might fit. So we have those weathered wooden tiles. I'm not sure if we can use them. They look like that. I can show you in, let me just, that's very big. At 100%, that's how they would look. So as you can see, sorry, at 1,000% probably, that's really big right now. At 500%. So that will be 100% now. I don't think that they fit though. Well, they might, because they could be like, those could be areas that were reworked because the floor was broken, because they're not really those, how would you call them? Floor boards, but more like cobblestone floor
Do you have any
pieces.
mud?
I do have mud,
Do you
yes.
have a mud texture? Let's try putting a mud texture with a bit of opacity over the top of that thing and trying to make it look a little dirty and muddy and torn up just a bit.
So we have a specific mud setting here. We can have dirt,
Or dirt. Yep.
which is also muddy.
Yep. A
Wet
darkish
mud.
kind of like something dark, something that's got a little bit of contrast in it. So it's got little pebbles in it or little bits of interest on it.
How about that? It's weirdly lit because we have the lighting here.
Yeah, I
Just
think,
look
yeah,
at the.
let's try that.
Okay. So let's go for that one. But I think before we can even by looking at that, we can assume that we need to make it a lot darker.
Yeah.
And probably a lot more saturated. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I think the brush is way too thick here.
Mm-hmm.
Softness. And I will go down with opacity as well.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. I will just, oh, I can't hit it because it was this one. I will just select this one and I will make it a little bit darker. So that we know that this, I think this is a really good setting for that. So we will make them all, at least some of them, a little bit darker, which was about 85, right? Okay.
Wonderful.
Satisfied? Happy?
Yeah, that looks great. See, we've not added any more assets in there. We've only replaced a torch that was there, and we've just changed the texture, changed the walls, and played
Yeah.
with the lighting. And I think that looks uh, much better, much more atmospheric. And that's kind of what we're aiming to do here.
Okay. Another thing, by the way, I just wanted to show you something. What you like about that is what if we place that here?
Yeah, that's lovely because that gives a beautiful shadow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we using the wall to create a little shadow is cool because it hints that there is a dark area. So this additionally adds without putting props there.
Yep. Wonderful.
Okay. Do you want to change anything in here? Do you want to leave that dark?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's great. I think that's enough. There's enough assets in there for that to be interesting. It's a little storeroom with a bunch of crates and barrels and bits and pieces. So I personally wouldn't touch that. I think that's pretty much how I would do it if I was trying to make a little storeroom there. Yeah. So all we did there was change the texture.
And you're happy with it?
Yeah.
Okay. I have two questions coming in.
Sure.
One of the question was that corridor seems a bit redundant. Do you think it is even necessary?
Do I think it's necessary for an encounter? For encounter planning, maybe not. For a more in-depth and well thought out sort of house, yes. Because as your players are going to come down this corridor, let's say you're playing it in a virtual tabletop, so we can think about it from a token perspective. They're going to start coming down. You're going to start placing their tokens there, and they're going to get a view of this corridor, and they're going to come down. There's not going to be a lot of space for them to really do anything. But what this corridor should sort of show to you, because obviously everything else in this map is going to be blocked off. You're not going to be able to see it because of light or whatever it is in a virtual tabletop. It's going to really sell the tone of this is a dark, sort of grim basement. So they're coming down into the corridor, it's tight, they're trying to maneuver, they're going to reach these two doors, and then they make the choice of which door to open. The first door is obviously a very dark storage room that they can rummage through, and then the next door that they open opens up into another very dark underground basement room with hopefully something is happening or something is interesting in this room. So that's what we've got to figure out.
So I think you should pay attention to things like building suspense. Having suspense rooms, I think, is helpful. It kind of, I would say, probably, again, that's up for the map artist who creates a map. I would have probably made that one big wine cellar instead of with another corridor and two doors. But I think we can use it for building suspense here, which is absolutely fine. And again, the idea behind this workshop here is not to take the map and rework everything, but take what we have and improve it. Yep. I have another question here, which I can answer. How do you work with lighting when your map will be used in virtual tabletops where players have their own light source? So first of all, what you're doing here in Dungeon Fog has nothing to do with the line of sight and the fog of war, so the things that they see and reveal. This is what I would call atmospheric light. This is that adds to the map itself. Now, we have been discussing the idea behind adding, like we've added a light source here to this torch, adding something like that to a player that automatically casts shadows as they move along. Now, that is, to be honest, that is very resource intense for all the player viewers who are watching that. And so we're keeping that for later. But I think if you look at maps, they often have just atmospherical light and shadow sources in there to create more in-depth experience of the map. And that's why we're working with lighting here. Another question was, would you leave I think we've answered that, you just answered that. Would you leave the storeroom that dark or would you add some light to it? So again, depending on how you're playing, I think sometimes you need to test your map, which means we are playing on a project table. So I have a projector, and I'm projecting the map onto the table. I need to test if the projector is strong enough to show that. If I get the feeling that it is not working, or if you print that map and you realize my printer is not giving me anything here, my players will just see a dark blob, then you can place a little light source in here, but just make it very, very dim, something like that, and turn that off. So I often use, by the way, the door as the location of the light source. If it's an indifferent, invisible light source, I say, well, that's where the players are standing when they're opening the door. So let's place the light source here, and then we have some kind of feeling as if they had opened the door and light from the outside shone in.
Another thing to bear in mind when we're talking about putting maps into virtual tabletops and using them and stuff like that, if you know that's what the purpose, what you're using your maps for, or that's what you're building your maps to go into, create more neutral lighting. So the light source we've added there in that corridor can be turned down a few notches, and the background light can be turned up a few notches. And in that way, yes, you've got a little bit of atmospheric lighting, but it's more neutral, so it's more baseline. And so that when you put it into a virtual tabletop, you basically go over that again. You turn down the global illumination in your virtual tabletop, and you add back in those light sources in the same places that you've created or you've thought up when you've been doing your map making. So you're basically going over what you've done already, but you're making them more vibrant in the virtual tabletop.
All right. So another technical question was, can you adjust room lighting for one room specifically and not for all rooms? The answer is no. That's why we said this is ambient light, which defines for the stage and the rooms. If you want to have specific room lighting, you have to put a light source there. So yeah, the chat is saying move along. We want to see more, so we will move along now a little bit.
Yes, right. Texture on that floor. Let's change the texture on that floor.
Right. You want to have another wooden texture?
I think we should have a nice stone slab texture.
Stone slab. Okay. Yep. So let's go in here and pick that as natural stone, but we need worked stone.
Something I think that possibly something where the entire square is a tile.
What about this one? Because
I think that's too complicated.
Okay. You just like something like that, you think?
No, even more basic. So you've got a, or you could turn up the scale on that, because that's down to 70% still, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Which was it? Well, I can't remember. It was that one.
Yeah, let's turn that up a bit. That's better. I think that looks quite nice. And let's get rid of those two light sources, because right now the room is lit very strangely. And now let's copy that light source and put it right in the middle, or in the corner there.
Oh, wonderful. You wanted to have it right here.
So what we've done now is we've added that the light source there is casting shadows into all four corners.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Instantly, what you've got there is nice amount of interest and detail. Now, what we should do in 4 points around the map is put some kind of pillars. We should put pillars in the thing so that the light source is then
okay, I know what you mean.
Spread across all four corners.
So where am I? Collection. You have quite nice pillars there, which are under, I think I've put them into the foyer. So do you think they're too fancy for this one? Because of with the gold thing, because then we could use just regular stone pillars.
Yeah. Ideally, what we could do instead of using any kind of pillars that is an asset, we could use actually. Can you do little bits of wall inside the room?
I can. Let me just.
If we can't find something that fits, we could just.
Yeah, well, we can definitely find something that fits. There's a lot there. So I think working with the, it's really zoomed in now, but working with the tiling here, I think that one would be quite nice, because if I place that here.
Yep, we need to make that nice and dark.
And let's make that dark and probably less saturated. And there you go. And I think it should cast shadow, right?
Yep.
So it has now, it's now casting shadows, but I see that my light source needs to be a bit bigger to do that.
Yeah, just a touch.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I would turn back down the lighting and I'd move that pillar closer towards the light, because that's too much light in there, I think.
Yep, I know what you mean. So you will put that here.
Yes, perfect. And then I would have, yep, there you go. No, the other one.
Yeah, that one, right. Okay.
Yep. One up.
You would like to have it here?
Yep.
Oh, you're counting. Oh, right. Sorry.
I was counting the
yeah, you're counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I got you. Okay. Okay, perfect. Would you like to add more to that?
To this room specifically? Yes, I think there's a couple of things that need to go in this room. Either a couple of tables, a couple of barrels, or something.
So you have, I think what we could do, because do you have, I can't remember, have you barrels that are lying on the side? No, I think they're all top down.
No,
for
these
now.
ones are all top down, yeah.
But I have quite similar barrels that you did in our Far East setting, because
so we're trying to go for pretty much a wine cellar at this point.
I think that would be cool. Containers. Well, there it is. So we have those ones here.
Yep.
We can make them, like, we could put them here on the wall.
I think they need to be a bit bigger.
I agree. They should be a little bit bigger. Something like that. No, that's too big. Something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
And I will make that one cast light, because then we can duplicate it, place it here, place it here. Do you want to have some that are sitting on top?
Yeah, sure.
And tile that one a little bit, or tilt it a little bit. Sorry, that's what I meant. Should we do the same at the bottom? Or just...
Yeah, can do. Yeah.
Okay.
Just copy all of those, group them up. And
yeah, oops, I need to go that way. I will group them up. And duplicate them and place them down here.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Another thing that I really like to do is, I kind of fell in love with that trick for my maps, is we have a blood stain here in the fantasy set.
Sure, yeah.
I don't use it as blood, but what I'm doing is I'm turning that dark and very transparent, like even more, just slightly, something like that. Rotate it a little bit. It doesn't need to drop shadow though.
Just a little stain on the floor.
Yeah, and I use that in some places to just create little stains on the floor to break the texture.
Yep, wonderful.
Okay, moving along. Oh, here's where the vampire. Here's probably where the hybrid vampire goes to rest if he's not sleeping upstairs.
So we need to get rid of that texture on the floor. I think it needs to be the same as the one in that cellar. So a nice stone slab texture. Yeah. Just quickly answering a question by Shadowblade. It must be hard getting all those barrels down there, especially if we have such a small stair. Should there be a second exit like pubs have outside for putting barrels in and out? I absolutely agree. That would be really cool. So what we could do is just indicate, just briefly hint that by splitting the wall here, splitting the wall,
And I will briefly return the grid size because I want to have that sit here and here. And when I bring back up my grid to the 70 that we had here, oops, 70, there you go. And we have something that could indicate, we can flesh that out and add a slab here or something like that. But that could be the spot where they put down the barrels.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just save once. That would be very helpful. And now,
remember to save.
Don't forget to save. What do we do with that room?
So let's get rid of that texture on the floor. Let's change it up to the same texture we have in the wine cellar, because I like that texture. That looks really, really nice.
There you go.
Yep. And then we want to get rid of that light source.
Sure. I will. Do you want the other light source again?
Yeah, let's put that in the center for now. Although what I think we should do is we should play with the color.
That's not the light source, sorry.
No, that is the stain.
That was the stain. By holding down the Alt key, you can cycle through things. So if you're accidentally hitting something or if something's blocking, press and hold the Alt key and click through things so you get what you want. I will place it here for now because I think what we could do is we could place that on a little elevation. We could build something where this thing sits upon.
Yep.
So
why don't we do a little elevated platform of wood?
Oh, okay, sure. In that case, we stay with the wooden texture here. And it should be, where is it? I think we should reduce for that one. We should reduce the grid size again. So 35, which is halved. Ignore the fact that we're bringing that back up, but when you change the grid size, the texture adjusts. So we now have, I think we have this would be cool. Something like here to here. Would you make it bigger? We make like.
Yeah. Center of the room. Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I would make it even. I will make it even something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that looks good.
Yep. If I would have grouped that.
Had two different assets. It's the top and.
Yeah. I know. I forgot that. It's the coffin and the coffin lid. So we are going to put the coffin in there, the coffin lid in there. Let's name that coffin because I can remember what it was. It's a coffin now. And let's move it up here. So I can shift that now and place it here. Okay, so now back to the light source. We could place the light source on top of it, although then it wouldn't cast any shadows because that's how DUNGEONFOG works. If you have a light source on top of the asset can't apparently cast a shadow. So do we want to have that glowing? Because I really like that effect.
You can make the asset itself. You can make the dungeon lid itself a light source, right?
I could, yes.
So then that would cast shadows?
Sorry, not sure how that would look though. Light source enabled.
Change the how much. So
the range.
Yeah, the range. So it's a relatively small range. Turn it up to a sort of take it to a red. Turn it up just a touch more.
Like that?
One more. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So where do you want that one? Well, I will lock that now because that is, so I can lock those things and then I cannot touch them anymore, which means I can shift that around. Where do you want to have that light source? Or should we get rid of it?
Let's get rid of that for now. Let's leave that up there. We might bring that back at some point.
Okay.
Those pillars that we've got in the other room,
Mm-hmm.
we want those on the very corners of that platform. So we're doing this
here.
Yep. So again, we're just playing with the lighting here because we can get some really nice effects with the light sources. It's subtle, but it looks very, very nice. You know, just visually, I think that looks great.
Okay. What about those chests?
I think we should have maybe a table along the back wall, the eastern wall, and we can have that chest on top of it. Let's just raise it up onto a table. It's a little less lonely.
Which one? The small table? This one? That's a little bit small, right? That one? The coffee? No, we don't. Well, we could have the dining table here. That's a little bit more.
No, because it's the line art's not going to fit. Where's the? I can't.
I think that one is.
Does that one have the bits on the sides?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That one can actually increase in size a bit, so we can make that a little bit bigger.
Here you go.
Yep. And then we want to put that right up against the wall. We could put it on the north wall, so the wall that you're on, in the middle. And then we could put the chest on top of that.
Yep. I just need to, which one? It's that one. Put it on top of it and rotate. And move it here. It's snap to grid. Yeah, it's snap to grid. I just realized. And I will bring it back to 100% though.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. Okay. What about the other one? Or do we do something symmetrical?
No, I think we should just get rid of that. I would, yeah.
Okay. So I would then, just to finish that, I would then again put something like.
Yeah, although now with these ones, I would make them a little bit more visible and I would make them red.
Oh.
So it look like dried blood.
Okay, so we go up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I would still go something, we could colorize them though.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And let's make that one a little bit smaller. Okay. Here we go, on to the next room. Now this is the one where the blood tanks are.
Yes.
Let me just quickly check for questions. Is the platform raised? Pillars on the wooden platforms, is that stable? So the thing is, the platform is not, the pillars are not standing on the platform. The platform is raised, but it is like IKEA does. It has those little notches where you've put that on. Okay.
You could make that a little bit more obvious if you take the pillars and bring them diagonally out a little bit.
You mean something like that?
Yeah. So it looks like, so you're aware that they're not actually on top of the platform. The platform is cut into where the pillars are sitting.
Okay.
We need to change the grid size back up as well.
Oh yeah, thank you. I forgot that. Ooh, now the light needs to be readjusted.
The light needs to be
because it is, it's paying attention to the grid. And where is it? Didn't we say that the lid is the light source?
At an angle though, you can, when you select it, it's like at a.
That's the wooden floor though. Sorry, I was cycling through all the stuff. Right. Let's make that easier. Content, coffin, lid, light source. Okay, and that was at 3, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Great. Now this is a very interesting big old blank room. I would make this a wooden room. So I'd make the floor on here wood, because this is a kind of how I imagine like a workshop to look. So we're gonna have sort of big tanks of blood. We're gonna have some papers lying around, and that kind of stuff. So we're gonna put the wood in here. We're gonna make sure that's is that 100% the wood?
Yeah, I will park our token outside for now so that we can focus on room decoration itself. That is, I think, not 100%. Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, I just copy pasted it. Right.
Sure. The light sources in there. Let's get rid of those. Yeah, let's just get rid of those braziers for now.
Okay.
Or maybe just put it in the middle.
Yeah, I was just saying, I like I like the idea of having braziers in here. I would put them though on a stone slab, something.
Yeah,
like
I would
that.
make them much more sort of darker orangey red. They're a little bit too orange for me, a little bit too yellow. So I'd make them a little bit redder, and I would turn it down a little bit so that they're yeah, so the dying embers of the brazier rather than a fully lit. Again, what we're going for here is dark corners and good light sources to make it feel dingy and dark. So I think that works quite well. The next thing is, I think we need to split up the room a bit into the different areas of where things are happening in the room. So we need an area where the blood is stored, where all the blood tanks are going to go. And then we also need an area where all the research is happening.
Yeah, so you would say something like, oh, here I have all my, that is not to grid again. Here I have my 2 blood tanks.
Yep. In fact, I would add another one in order to fill up the space a little bit more.
Yep. Wait, sorry, I got a message. So yes, because of the question I've just got, those assets here are free to use because they are provided from Caeora. They're called the Dark Lord set. And I've uploaded them as available for free accounts and premium accounts alike. So if you want to do that, you don't need a premium subscription. You can use them for free.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just, they've got to be symmetrical. Yeah, they have to be.
Spacing. Okay. Yeah. Right.
I would then put in the lower right corner, I would put another platform of wood, as sort of a little raised area where the research. We're going to put some tables.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We're going to put some more pillars, maybe. I would make it a bit bigger. So, yeah.
You want to have it bigger?
Yeah. So maybe
even more. Okie doke. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, that will be symmetrical because then it runs directly in there and there.
Yep.
We need to change the settings here. So what I like to do when I'm working with something like that, where I want to emphasize that there is a height difference, is I would either go for that one and make it not 100%, but 110%, for example, or 120, we will see, like something like that, because it is a little bit bigger, thus closer to the camera, if you would say so.
But it ruins the texture on that side. Can you switch the texture so that it's horizontal?
Yes, I can. I can rotate it to 90 degrees.
Wonderful. Yep.
Yep. Would you like it like that? Perfect.
Yep.
Okie doke. How do you approach on that? Do you go, are there little stairs up?
Yeah, maybe a couple little stairs.
So just quickly, this little trick again, what you need to do is we've used that. Oh, by the way, that works pretty nice.
Yeah, that's a nice looking.
That was not intended, but let's use that. I will put it beneath. And I will just shift it down a little bit. And then again, duplicate and place here again, which I then, let's put that one up here. You don't really see a difference though. Why not? Because I think I've mixed. Yeah, now it's working. Now that one is wrong. Yeah.
That one is still on the top.
I confused myself with the sorting. Okay, there you go. Now you have stairs leading up there, which means those barrels here, we need to, again, let's create a group. Barrels. It's this one, this one, this one, and this one. So those barrels go into my little folder. That one as well. I think I've caught them all. Because those are the three over there. Perfect. And now I can move that thing to somewhere else.
Yeah,
let's
yeah, throw it over there for now. Oh yeah, along the back wall. That's great.
Let's have them here.
Yeah.
Okay, and now you would like to create now you would like to create a reading area up here, like a research.
Yeah, I think we need the pillars in the corners there again. So from the rooms above, let's grab those pillars that we used before and put them on the edges of the platform in the same way that we did again. Because we're just trying to, yeah, there we go. And then we want one on the other side there against that wall, and then one on the other side against the far wall.
Okie doke.
Great. Just caps it off a little bit. And now we need some tables, and we need some papers, and we need some bottles, and we need some all that good stuff.
Which I have put into the study room. So we have the desk. I think that desk should sit against the wall.
Yep.
Let's put it a little offset so I can then take tables. Would you like to have the other table that we used before, which was, I think, that one?
Yes, that's. Yep.
Let me just briefly check something. Yep, perfect. Okay. And we then need, I need to save most of all. And then we would like to have a book here. Would it be in that direction? No, I think.
Other way.
The other way.
Yeah,
something like that. So a book. And how about, I think that would be cool if we put a lectern, something like here.
Yeah, sure.
Although I would be really pissed if I had to read against the light of the brazier.
But we can add some more lights up here on the platform.
Yeah, I agree. Let's put that here, because here he has.
I think this is a perfect place to start putting tons of tiny little candle lights.
I agree.
Yeah, that looks great.
So we have the book. Then there's another book here. Probably there, stacked here.
Yep, wonderful.
And let's put one here. And I really like that you've added the paper, because then I can just go like, I could even use my random rotation thing for that. I could say randomly rotate that. I don't think it should cast shadows though. And I could go like whoop, 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 whoop.
Yep, just throw them all over the place. He's a messy alchemist.
I think he left some notes here.
Stack them up a little bit as well. So there's a nice little pile of notes on a table. Yeah. And I've got the quill and the little ink blot as well.
Yeah, I know. So we have the ink bottle. We're going to put that on top of the paper. And we are going to add the quill here. Okay. By the way, I think, what about, well, he left some, oh, that's really big. He left some coins here.
Sure.
And what else can we have? Well, let's put a shelf on top of that.
Let's put some shelves along that side wall there as well.
Here or here?
Yeah, that side. Yeah, the eastern side. Why is that not?
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Ah!
Yeah,
it's got
yeah. Don't
random
worry.
rotation on. That's why.
Yeah. I've had a weird rotation here. So if that's 90 degrees, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, there we go. Great.
Okay.
Yep. We need some stains on the floor with much more red blood. So this isn't dried blood. This is going to be quite red under the tanks and around the tanks. We want to turn that up, not too much more, but we do want to turn that up so it's nice and red. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yep. Maybe just a few more. Yeah, there we go.
Let's have some splashes where he kind of steps to his, like as if he's
sure, yeah,
drags them behind him when he's going up the stairs.
Let's also fill in the area between the door and the platform with a carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's quite a well-trodden pathway.
I think I've created a carpet collection here. Which one would you like? The blue one, the purple one, the red one? I think the red one is too ornate.
Yeah, it's too ornate. So let's do the purple one, and let's change the color of the purple one so that's a little bit more muted. So right now it's very strong.
So it doesn't drop shadow, and it is. You would like to have it saturated, or would you like to have?
Yeah, there we go. Just turn down the saturation a bit, so that it's not as new as it once was.
Okay.
The next thing we need to do is candles. So I think we should work out the. We should get some candles and add some little candle lighting on some of the shelving and around the.
Oh right, yeah. Sorry, stuff. Candles. You just said that before, but I forgot. Which is, where did I put
the candles?
I forgot the candles. I think I've put the candles in the study, but I'm not sure.
One candle.
I have a set of candles here. Where do you want to put that? Like on the floor? Like would he?
Yeah, let's put them sort of all over the place. So we want little candles on the floor. We need to give them some lighting though, so they give off just a little touch of light. We don't want it to give it a lot. We want it to be nice and dim still, but we want to show that there's just
those are LED power candles. So first of all, they have this orangey light, although a little bit more. They are not that bright, and they have just a range of 2, possibly. No, even less. 1.
Even less, 1. Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So if we put a couple of those on the shelves on that eastern wall, maybe one on the barrel over there, a couple on the shelf, or yeah, just scatter them around till it's got some nice little light sources.
Okay. And now we should play with the fact that this all casts shadows. So yeah, I think it could, like that. And where else do we have? So one trick from my side is you don't have to put everything to cast shadows. Just pick the things that are visually interesting. So technically, I could go and turn everything into cast shadow objects, but I know that it doesn't make sense because this paper isn't casting shadow. I know that this book might cast shadows, but it's too far away from light sources. So why should I do that? So I think for now, this is the only visually interesting part where we should say casts light. And the book, though, it has this, I'm not sure if you're seeing it on stream, but it inherits the shadow from the lectern, which is wrong. So what I need to do is I need to select the book and say flat, but no prop shadows, which means please don't render any shadows on top of myself. So the book is now ignoring shadows. Okay. We have more rooms. Are you sure that we're not finished yet with that one?
Okay, just quickly, just some crates along the western edge of the platform, and then a couple in the barrels in the corner on the left. So we just want a couple more crates and things to show this is a place where they bring in supplies and work on herbs and things like that.
Okay, I think the long crate is really cool for that, because we can place the long crate here. Don't need the rotation. Then, but we could rotate that one a little bit, place it here,
Stack it
and
up a
then
little bit.
take the open crate and stack it up a little bit, put it here. And there's an empty one as well. So I could make a small empty one that is sitting here. There you go. Happy. I think there should be an empty. I think he's keeping. This is his trash corner. That's where he.
Yeah, just a couple of crates over there. Wonderful.
Empty crate. He also has a bucket here. I think we're done with that room.
I think so. Yeah,
I mean,
looks great.
wait, I'm not sure. I want to test something though, because you have that barrel with liquid in it.
Yeah.
And I already wanted to do that.
Oh, you want to see if you can turn it red?
Yeah, look at that.
More saturation, more red.
Yeah, but then it needs to be a little darker.
Put it in the corner a little bit more. So yeah, over there.
Okay, there you go.
Wonderful.
So
last
room for this level, and probably, I don't know, I lost track of the time. No,
well, we've got about 25-ish minutes, I think, maybe less.
Yeah, let's make this one perfect and then brush up everything. So 25 minutes, says the god voice in my ear.
Yep.
Right, let's go for that one.
Okay. Yeah, well, I would say probably stone in here. We're going to want stone in this one as well, because there's going to be a lot of visual interest on the floor with bones and
so you
all
want this again, this stone floor texture? Yes.
One, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then we should get rid of that light source on the far end there. Too white. Now that bench, I think, needs to be a bit bigger. So does the sort of the body on it as well. I think it just needs to be just a touch, like 10. Yeah, we just need to make it just a little bit more of a prominent thing in the room. Yeah, there we go. And yeah, that bucket's great, but maybe bring it closer into the table so it's not just sitting there low.
Yeah, let's bring it a little bit up. That is snap to grid.
That's why, because it's snapping to grid.
Let's bring it a little bit under the table. So that it's sticking, and I would, just from a visual perspective, I would always tilt it a little bit. And where is my bucket? It needs to be under the table. There you go.
Sure. Now, what I would do in this room in order to bring a little bit more interest into the whole level is we're going to bring some light in. But let's not make it orange or red. Let's make it cyan or blue.
Okay. I will put it here, and I will hide it now, because this is not a cyan torch, but this is just an atmospheric light that we want to do. And is it working on stream, or is it already keying? Because we need to
right, let me check. No, it seems to be fine. Seems to be all right.
Seems to be fine. Okay.
Yeah, you could even. It seems.
Oh, the voice from above says he fixed it, so I can even go
you can make it nice
green.
and greeny cyan.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah.
Although I would, now that we have that, from the perspective that the players are entering from here, I would not have them stand in the green light, but I would have them walk against the green light, which is kind of repelling. You don't want to walk towards a green light source. That is something in our instinct tells us that that is not good. So I would put it here, and probably extend it a little bit. And let's make it 5. but turn it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I kind of prefer it when it's got a little more of a little more shadows in those corners on the end.
Okay, I know what you mean.
Why don't we turn down the effect of the green a little more? Yeah, so let's turn down the radiance so it's a little less radiant, and we'll make the green a little less vibrant, so it's a little bit more gray. So
something like that and something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. So it's just very gloomy.
Okie doke.
Yep, there we go.
Let me just quickly see if that works fine with my, oops, that should cast a shadow and not become a light source. Yep, it works fine with the table, although I would reduce the shadow length. Now here's a fun bit. Usually the shadow length is defined by the height of the light source. So if you have a light higher above, then the shadow probably gets smaller, shorter. But if you reduce the light source, the shadow begins to stretch out. Now, when we designed that, we thought that since we're on a 2D map, you want to adjust the shadow based on the object and not based on the light source. We are investigating, though, if we can change that with Deus, where when you place a light source, you have a setting that says something like low, medium, height, and that automatically adjusts the shadows for the objects, because that would mean that you don't have to click every object and drag the shadow length. So there was a lot of user experience and learning involved here when we created that tool.
That's cool.
Right.
Right,
Continuing.
I would take that barrel out in the corner and put another red barrel in there because you're draining the blood, so that makes sense.
Well, would you leave it with him? He could try to stick it back in. Like, no, that's mine.
I've got some skulls in my pack. We need to add a few more skulls. So, what we could do is we could make a little skull pile. So we could make a little cluster. So we could do skulls in a little circle. So rotate them round, and then put one on top. So it's kind of like a little pyramid of skulls.
Yeah, I will put that. Oops, that was the bone. I know what you mean. I will put it outside here for a brief second, because then I don't have
sort
to
of build
work.
it. Yeah.
First of all, snap the grid away. So I'll build it here, which means that I have one here, one here, one here.
Yep, lovely.
And then let's put one on top of it. Something like that, I assume. Okay, let's group it. Skull pyramid. Okay.
And we just want a couple of those sort of around. At the back wall, I think we should have a table with some implements on. So some knives and some cutting and draining implements. So leave the sort of the southern wall there.
Sorry, I was dragging around. The singular skull. Yes. So wait, what? Come again?
Sorry, yeah, you're concentrating on that. On the back wall, we should have a table with some cutting implements.
Okay, I will just, where was it? I will just take that one. Control D is duplicate, if you're wondering how I made that. Put it here.
A little bigger. And yeah, basically just right up against the barrel.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay, let me bring that in. We want to have something. I will just use that in the sake of time saving. I will use those to make this little stash here.
Yep.
And have one in the corner. Okay, I can get rid of that. And you wanted to have cutting instruments.
I've got a little gold knife in my set.
I know, I've put it in the kitchen.
Just have a little knife. Ah, yes.
So here's the knife. I don't think that we need a pie. Do we have a steak? Let's put a little steak there.
No, but we could put a couple of little candles in there.
Yeah, I agree.
Light sources.
Oh, there it is. I was looking for it. Let's take the candle and make a little, put it here, and probably here, because he needs light to take the blood.
In fact, we should probably put that candle in the vampire room as well, around the edges of the platform, in the top right corner where we've got the coffin.
Yeah, here.
Those, because that could do with a few little bits of little interest. Yeah, there we go. A couple of those. Although maybe not there, because that's where the shadow comes from the light source in the middle.
Oh, sure. So maybe he's just he likes to. No, I don't think. Would he have it here?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move that one to here. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
When I've got another question here. So first of all, we're getting complimented. You're doing very good work and a lot to learn, but are we going to see many more maps? So obviously, apparently, since we're getting close to the end of the workshop, and as you can see, that is a creative process where you just sit down and refine maps and add props and add lighting. We cannot touch all the maps that you have submitted. We couldn't barely touch the whole layers here of those, which is absolutely fine. But if you like what we're doing, if you like what you're seeing, we can definitely come up with more of those videos where Caeora and I just take a map and start working on it and building it.
Yeah, let us know when we ask for some feedback on these streams about what you'd like us to do for future things. That's really interesting information. We've got like 15 minutes, I think. So should we just play around with a few other bits and pieces? I think if we zoom out, we can get a good look at what we've actually made.
Yes, here we are. So I will bring back the token because that was the token. Let's leave it here. That's that. We should have done it a before and after, I think. Also, there is a light source that I can get
rid of that. Let's turn down the light of the level there, because that's still a bit bright for me, that mud.
You mean the stage?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you can see, if it's too bright, it suddenly removes all the attraction from the inner. But if I go really dark, the other one starts to shine. So let's go for that right now. And again, I think what you can see here, and a lot of the steps that we would be doing for the other levels now in this map are repetitive. It's always the same. You look at the level, you look at the room, you understand what that room is, what is the purpose of that room. You try to pick the right floor texture that might fit the purpose. As Caeora said, well, this is a working room. You might want to have wooden floor in there. Or this is a wine cellar where you have heavy objects hitting the floor, where a parquet floor would be just a bad idea. So this is stone. So you try to understand the purpose of the room, and you add a floor texture, some decorational objects, probably some brushes. We could do some brushes here still. And you add a light source that, again, the main purpose here is not to replicate reality, but to get an artistic, creative input on how this room could look if you add light to it from an artistic standpoint.
Yeah, I mean,
did I forget anything?
Would I add anything to this? Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of things I would keep adding to this. One of the things that I like to think about when it comes to these kind of battle maps is height. Now, we've already done it a little bit with the platforms, but it's interesting from a sort of an encounter view. If we were talking about fighting something in these rooms, how you can play with height, not just distance. So in the room with the vampire coffin, for example, we could stretch that room out to the east, and we could put a lower section with some tombs of their ancient ancestors or things like that. So a slightly lower level that you would then sort of look down over, or even a higher level where they would look down on you. So you could get some height there, so you can have interesting things going on with ranged weapons or ranged abilities or spells. So that's something that I like to think about a lot when I'm making maps. Typically that happens sort of in the process of sketching, but the nice thing about Dungeon Fog is you can go in afterwards and you can go, hey, I'm just going to change that wall and we're going to add something into the end there. So yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah,
I
I
love
think
lighting in this. I think
yeah.
that's really good. So I wouldn't change any of that.
Yeah, I think what we could definitely try is because I think I like the tool a lot in reworking the floor is adding some brushes. So we could still go in there with a few different brushes.
Yep.
And try to add some. And now I think the moss would be like the broken tiles and dirt is a texture that I really like. That is something that I often use. I need to work. I need to find now the right setting. So I will go back at 200% now because that is a lot easier to see for all of you. I will save because I haven't done it for some time. And I will create thickness and softness here. So this is what it would look like. Now this obviously this doesn't fit the scenery, the coloring. So what we can do is we just place down the brush once and select the brush. There you go. And now try to adjust it, which means that it's obviously
Wah!
Wah! So that is it was colored. So that is the original brush. Now I think we need to get rid a little bit of the saturation here. We also need to make it a lot darker. So now that was a bit too dark. I think that is good. And if we scale that up to 200%, I think it's now getting interesting.
You've given me a really good idea for drawing textures, actually. You've given me an idea for drawing a stone texture like this, drawing another texture on, like, using the same texture base, but cracking it slightly so that when you're drawing it over, it starts to crack. And then doing another texture where I weather it even more and add dirt and little stones and more cracks. And then another texture even more where it's just completely broken apart.
Yeah.
So what you would do is you would come into a base texture like this, and then you would input that texture over the top and get progressively more ruined in certain places in the corners, for example, or sort of around the pillars or through the points where you're actually traveling, where it's been worn and used a lot more. And I think that would really elevate the map. So I'm gonna think about that.
Great.
For a future texture.
Yeah, so another thing, by the way, is we are currently reworking our brush tool, and Project Deus was kind of coming in between where we said, oh no, we need to concentrate on the alpha before we finish our brush tool. So once the alpha is out, once we have finally released the alpha, we will return and fix and finish the brush tool that we've started. And one of the things there is that we can have transparent brushes, which means that you could just take cracks and paint them on top of regular tilings, which I think is going to be very interesting. Yep. So now we have that, and now I think the opacity could be a little bit lower. Now I can start just briefly adding those here, just to add a little bit of
visual interest. I'll finish that sentence for you.
Thank you very much. Visual interest. And one thing I would highly recommend is don't stick with just with one scaling setting. Make differences here. Like, let's bring one with 400 and put that just right there in the corner, something like that. And then probably here, it's very, I think just for the sake of showcasing it, I would turn it up a little bit, because that creates a lot of organic texture, because we know that those textures can easily become very repetitive. So using those brushes to spice that up is, I think, a quite powerful tool to create even more visual interest here. Okay. Right.
Just quickly, is there any questions? I was going to say put some crates in the barrel room in the corners where there's not a door, because that room looks a little empty for a wine cellar. Yeah.
Okay, I think that was a question. Will you make it so DungeonFog can do each room light source by itself like you can in Arkenforge? So again, I don't think that we want to make a light adjustment based on a room, but adding light sources to those rooms will allow you to make exactly that, but even with the light radius. So let's place, oops, it is snap the grid. Let's place a crate here and do another one next to it. And then make a smaller one on top of it. There you go. Okay, we have 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes left. And I think this is now a perfect opportunity if you want to have, if you have specific answers like, how can I do this? How can I make that? That we can still address that.
Yep.
If you have any questions to Caeora, like how did you create those assets? How is your asset drawing? How just shoot, ask your questions
Give
now.
us questions in the last 10 minutes.
Questions.
We will answer them as quickly as we can.
Right. And I will just, because we can't do a previous after comparison right now, but we can definitely switch between levels. So this is how we ended up doing this. And Nikki, I hope if you have watched, you like what we did, you're happy with it. Because I think it was an improvement, or at least it was a change of art style here. If we go upstairs, so comparable to that, I like the way that textures are differently colorized and used and placed. It is, though, I think there was, as you can see, there was a lot of stuff that you can add and bring those tiny details, like we then did here with the lighting. There is a question. Oh, yeah, Nikki, you have a question yourself. When I was placing the little roofs, it was really challenging to size them for the sections that I needed. Is there a way to resize an asset in one direction only? So at the moment, no, not directly. What you can do is you can take one of those assets, although I would not recommend it, but you can take those assets and put them in the asset manager. Let me just briefly save that and show you what I mean. And let's torture Caeora a little bit with that.
Changing the scale.
Yeah. So if you would put them, like here you have all the assets, you can search them and drag them over. So let's just take one thing. Let's take the open book, because there are books here somewhere. It was in the study. So all you need to do is you take the book, drag it over, place it here, and then you have the book in here, which is now part of your collection. And here in this little thingy, you can manually adjust width and height, which means you could do something like that and start to distort it. But again, the effect is rather unsatisfying. So what you could do is, as you've seen with the platforms that we did, you could use the shape tool instead. Okay, moving along, here are some questions rolling in.
It's been a long day, Till. It's been a long day.
That's fine. I'm good. My monitor didn't explode today. I'm very happy with that.
A fantastic improvement.
Here's a great question to you. When do you know how do you know when to stop?
How do I know when to stop?
Yeah.
Practice.
My answer would be take a night and sleep over it. Usually I realized that I went overboard with lighting, or I went overboard with colorization, because my eyes grew accustomed to what I'm seeing, and I was starting to add more and more saturation, for example, because I was getting used to what I'm seeing. So taking a night and sleeping over it is a great way to do that.
Just to clarify on that answer a little bit more on my side, by practice I mean every single map that you do, you're going to get a little bit more of a better understanding about the composition of the room that you're creating, or the space, or the landscape, or whatever it is you're making. You're going to get a bit of a better understanding about where things go and how things look. Maps, when you're first starting out, have a tendency to look messy because you just want to keep going, or they have a tendency to look blank. Like this one did when we started. There was a room there that was just like, didn't have anything in it. It's like, oh, what do I put in it? What is it? You get a better understanding the more maps that you make, the more pieces of art that you look at, the more that you do. I always tell people, make loads of little maps to start with. The more little maps you make, the better and better you get, and the more that you understand the process. So yes, practice. Just practice.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you watch the Great GM channel, if you see what Guy has been doing over the past year, his maps have increased so much. I mean, he always had great maps, but now he has really beautiful maps that he made with DungeonFog, and that is because he has practiced a lot with it. Here's a question. That's a technical question I can simply answer, I think. It is from Razal Cool. I think what you're talking about is this effect. You have the ghosting switch under levels. He asks, when I make maps with multiple floors, the lower floors show the upper floors transparently. Is there a way to prevent that from happening? Yes. We allow ghosting because if you're building a lower level, you might want to know what the other layout was. But all you need to do is turn off the ghosting switch under your levels and layers tab, switch to levels, and turn off ghosting. Next question, is there any way to emulate a distant light source like sunlight or moonlight? I've approximated it in my cow map, but of course the light is divergent. Well, yes, I know that. So DungeonFog apparently is built as a dungeon tool or a battle map tool. And when we introduced the light sources, we hadn't really experienced or figured out how to approach them, but we have some ideas how to do that. Now, right now, the only thing you can do, there's a rather simple trick, let me go up to the ground floor. Oh no, we don't have, because we've cropped it. Let me just quickly add. There's something. Wait, I've got a message from, 5 minutes. I'm not sure if I can do it right now. So I will not make that right now because I can't do it in 5 minutes with that map. But I will do a little video on that to answer your question. In short, take 3 light sources and put them together with not the full 100% lighting adjustment. So if you take 3 of those light sources, but make the lightness of all of them just around 30%, and if you put them very close together with a very long distance, you have something very similar like sunlight, for example. And if you now turn that into blue and reduce it, then it is something like moonlight. How do you know which ideas to act on? Caeora, I will read the next question. You will answer this one.
Oh, okay, sure.
How do you know which ideas to act on?
Well, that's very dependent on what map you're building. Like what sort of concept you have in your head, what sort of idea you're trying to incorporate. We had a very clear idea with this map. We had a clear concept, and we acted upon that almost intrinsically because we both kind of understood what it was trying to be. It was a dark basement with vampires, with an alchemist. They were bleeding this vampire dry. We had these ideas. We didn't really need to work on it too much. Now, that kind of idea process is critical in the early stages of when you're creating a map. So say you're creating a dungeon for your encounter or for your game. You basically need to have a little checklist of ideas that you want to act upon. Is it a dwarven ruin? Check. Is it a mind flayer lair or something like that? You need to check that little thing, and you need to have all these little ideas, collect them all into a little checklist, and then act on those ideas and put them together so that you have them as a kind of as a theme going throughout your sort of map. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Till's like, yep.
Yep.
Yep, that's good. I like that.
Okay, so I think we have the last question now. And it's a technical question. I can quickly answer that. Is it possible to duplicate a full layer? And the answer is no, not yet, but it is on our list for the fall-winter update this year. Because duplicating a layer, I know that would be great if you're building something like a tower. Hello, Janet. Bye, Janet. I think we're slowly getting to the point where it's time to say goodbye to you folks. So thank you. It was a lot of fun. Mark, thank you for having you here.
No, thank you for having me. It's great.
Yeah,
We made a nice little map.
Beautiful. And you have made a very beautiful asset pack. Thank you very much. And with that, goodbye.